March 30, 1994. I bought a hammock. I knew I'd never have time to use it, but I hoped that seeing it might bring a little peace into my life. It's 10:05 in the morning. Don is in surgery to repair the tear duct that he obliterated in his plane crash from a few years back, and 6 blocks away in an oxygen tent at the vet's office is our 5-week-old serval kitten, Tribal Princess, and she's gasping for life. Before leaving the house this morning, Don fired his son Danny Lewis and demanded return of all of his vehicles, tools, and equipment. Danny's been stealing from him and the other workers and is emotionally retarded. He has a horrible attitude and is as lazy as they come, but he's kind to the animals and I like him. Tracy says Danny reminds him of his own problems while growing up and working with his father. He says Danny can't go on to be a man while he's still a little boy looking for praise from his father. I suggested to Don that he find the good in Danny and to tell him that he loves him, but Don doesn't know how to love. He says he loves me more than he's ever been able to love anyone, and I believe it. Some people just have a hard time expressing love, but Don has a hard time feeling it. God presents us with lessons daily, and I think these animals are here to teach Don how to love. It's been a gradual process, beginning with the pheasants, chickens, peafowl, and swans, where Don started learning to put the needs of a live animal ahead of his own. The raccoons, squirrels, and foxes taught him patience in dealing with animals who don't think like him. The exotic cats seem to be teaching him that life is more important than money, and that the money we have is well spent in providing comfort for others. I see love in his face when he's giving a midnight bottle to a kitten. I see love in his face as he rushes a sick cat to the vet. His favorite daily ritual is to give every cat a little treat in the morning. The whole world can just stop until he's had his morning time with his cats. Maybe one day he will be able to love his own kind. 10:10 p.m. Please, Lord, no more days like today. I paid Don's bill as he was going into the recovery room because I knew he'd be in a hurry to go home. It was 10:30 a.m. I asked if I could sit with him while he woke up and was obliged. When I reached his room, he looked dead and had knocked his oxygen mask off. The attendant snapped it back on and left the room. Don's breathing was so shallow that I couldn't even detect it. No fog on the mask, no movement of his body. His jaw would drop down like a fish, gasping, but his chest and stomach did not move. He was cold and clammy and blue, and instinctively I said, "Breathe!" And he did about 3 times, and then he'd regress. I tried breathing with him, holding my breath when he didn't take a breath to make sure I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't. No one can live on so little air. For 3 hours I told him to breathe. "That's good, you're doing good," and each time he heard me, or I shook him, or I squeezed his hand, he would breathe. If I stopped, he stopped. Don had told the doctor that he couldn't take much anesthesia, but when I came to talk to the doctor after the surgery, he said he had to throw in everything but the kitchen sink to put Don under. I knew then we were in trouble. The doctor left us there with a hostile receptionist and a rude nurse. I was afraid to say anything about Don's condition for fear that they'd pump him full of drugs to wake him up and really mess him up. I figured as long as talking and handling him was keeping him breathing, it was the safer route. As Don started coming around, he called for me over and over. I assured him I was there. He kept saying, "Something's wrong. I can't remember to breathe. Something's goofy. I'm getting farther away." I'm scared enough, and he's adding to it. Sometimes he'd ask how our serval was doing. Did she drink her milk? Can she breathe? He kept asking me to describe the place where he was, the walls, the bed, and where the phone was. I hope, for Don's sake, there are phones in heaven.